How's everybody doing? I'm going to attempt, I'm not really sure how to teach it. So, the way you learn how to teach is make mistakes and then, do it a different way. So I've already got a Revelation overview on my playlist, Revelation Overview Series. And it's part one, part two, 59 minutes, 46 minutes. So you're looking at an hour and 45 minutes worth. And I can't even, I'm not even sure how I went about that one. I think I just went through the book of Revelation, if I'm not mistaken. And I always start at chapter 6 because that's when it comes into view with us. So that's something to take a look at on my regular YouTube channel, which is just Trey Stokes Roman numeral 3. This series, though, I'm going to put on both channels, the Bible study channel and the main channel, T. Stokes Daily Bible Studies, and of course, Trey Stokes Roman numeral 3. So when you look at the book of Revelation, what we can now do, I can now get rid of this and pull this way over. I take you through every verse. Revelation 6. Basically, 1 through 8 is the Antichrist. That is when he receives his crown, and then you're going to get World War III. You get war, famine, death due to 1/4 of the earth. After that, you've got something that's not literal. I think it's very symbolic. The church crying out, "How long must we wait?" Because their bodies are in the grave. When you die, you go to the grave. And we know that from Daniel 12, 1, 2, and 3. And we know it from two different places, actually, Old Testament and New Testament. So if you go to Daniel 12, and you go to 1 Corinthians, I believe that's the passage that gives us, we shall not all sleep. At the last trump. So we shall not all sleep. The dead shall be raised. So you're in the grave. And Daniel tells us, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. Some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt, because the judgment is everlasting. And, or you have life everlasting. But there is no eternal torment except for the fallen angels, and that's in my other playlist. Hell is not eternal torment. The wages of sin is death. You're raised, you're judged, and you receive a second death. The fallen angels bypass death. When they're described, they are thrown. There is no, that old Monopoly, do not pass go, do not collect $200, go straight to jail. Yeah, well, the fallen angels do not get death. They go straight to the lake of fire alive. See, hell is the grave. They don't get death and the grave. They go straight to the torment. And so does everybody that takes the mark, because that's the fallen angels. through the technology, the fallen angels will enter into the human body, possess the human body, and use the human body as an avatar. That's why your grandmother or your grandfather might be running around trying to chop your head off. I mean, the Bible's pretty clear. Once you take the mark, A, there's no turning back, and B, anybody will kill you. Anybody and everybody. There's no safe refuge. So, and it's not like, you know, people would see something and go, oh, now I need to kill my Christian friend. I need to lop his head off. No. It's because the humans, the goats, will become possessed. It will overtake their body, and that's the iron mixing with the miry clay, because the clay is the symbol of the body. In Romans 9, 11 through 24, the potter's clay parable. I mean, the potter's clay passage. It's certainly not a parable. And so you're asleep. So if you're asleep, and we see in the Old Testament and in the New Testament that you are, then those that are crying out that die in the Great Tribulation, that's symbolic. That's not literal. And then the rest of chapter 6, 12 through 7, is the wrath of God. And it's 6 seals out of 7, and the earth is changing as God's wrath is at hand. So that's the wrath of God. So you're actually all the way through to the very end times in chapter 6. They just don't give you the removal of the church. You go to chapter 7, the church is sealed, ready to be removed, because the church is sealed there. The church is sealed in Revelation 7 and Revelation 14. Church is sealed, ready to be removed, 144,000 sealed. So the sealing takes place chapter 7 and chapter 14. And that's what this is all about, is that the book of Revelation comes to you in waves, just like an ocean wave comes, or when you're on a lake and a boat goes by and the waves start coming in. Revelation is written in waves. Get the church sealed, and you get the church sealed again. It's the same story told in different ways. There's not 2 different sealings. So then you got the church. Where were we? Yeah, the church is sealed and the church is removed. And you've got churches sealed and churches removed because there's worship in heaven. I've got it classified as worship, but if they're worshiping, that was kind of hard to do, showing heaven, worship in heaven, and in this case, proof of removal. So it's a mixture, is what it is. I'm not sure if I have all the mixtures together. No, I don't. But each time that you do get the sealing, then you get the removal, because they're sealed and then they're removed. There's worship in heaven. The church is removed. Later on, this shows the church being removed again. In the next chapter, the church is removed again. And in Revelation 19, the church is removed again. So we're going to go over each of them in sections. Just kind of giving you a brief little overview. And I would say, so which one is bigger? The Antichrist passages. Antichrist receives his crown as corona, and you get World War III, war, famine, death. And you've got the Antichrist again, killing the church divided by two during the Great Tribulation. That's Great Tribulation stuff right there. That's the Great Trib, the two witnesses. Because they're also called candlesticks, which is representative of the church as the seven churches. At the beginning of Revelation, it's a church divided into seven. And the seven letters are very symbolic. They're not literal. They're written as a parable, even though I'm absolutely sure that John did write seven letters to seven churches in the literal sense. I shouldn't say that I'm sure. We would assume so, because there were seven churches there. That part is factual. There were actually seven churches in those locations. Were those literal letters to those churches? I'm not real sure about, because when you read them, who's writing them? John is. Well, who's doing the talking? Jesus is. It's Jesus talking to the church in a parable sense. So whoever's reading those letters, would it make sense to them? Well, there were certain things that would pertain to those churches, sure. You suffer, the suffering that was taking place in those churches. So from that standpoint, they could be very literal. But from another standpoint, they could be, and I just say could be, also more of a parable. And if they were sent, did they even know, did they understand what they were reading altogether? Maybe they understood parts of it. So that's a very ambiguous, what those seven letters are. But it's the church divided by seven. The two witnesses, the church divided by two. And it also shows the removal of the church as the two witnesses are taken up. And that should be in our removal section. 11, church gathered and removed. That's where that's the two witnesses section. So there's a lot going on with the Antichrist, church going through the Great Tribulation. Church going through tribulation, death, Great Trib, Revelation 11, 8 through 10. So I hope you can see all this here. This is chapter 6, 1 through 8. Chapter 11, verses 1 through 7. Chapter 11, verses 8 through 10. Chapter 13, verses 1 through 18. That's the entire chapter. And that one's just titled Antichrist. See, Antichrist and Great Tribulation, because the Great Tribulation is at the hand of the Antichrist. Those are all color-coded the same. All of chapter 13, verses 1 through 18. That's your 666 Bible verse. I just put all of that in there. You go to chapter 14, verse 13. Great Trib is taking place through the above items. And we'll get to whatever those above items are when we cover the rest. Revelation 17, verses 8 through 11, a deeper description of Revelation 13, Antichrist, in how he is, then isn't, and then is again, the movie The Prestige. And that's very detailed. Mark of the Beast, Knowing for Sure, that series that I did, where I go through, first I've been back through that series just yesterday, and I see that I do a lot about the artificial intelligence world. And then later on, I get into all the Bible verses. So, but Revelation 17, verses 8 through 11, you're going right back and you're revisiting the Antichrist again. That was detailed in Revelation 13. And then you get the Antichrist again, just more of the Great Trib retold in a different way in Revelation 17, verses 12 through 15. So I hope y'all can all, see these numbers and so forth, or we're kind of defeating the purpose. So any type of study you want to do, if you want to stop and go over those verses and read them, I'm not going to here. But you can. You can read those, right? Big enough. Revelation chapter 13, verses 1 through 18. The same as Revelation 17, 8, and 10 and 11 for sure. I remember verse 9 is a little ambiguous. So let's move on to the next one. Church is sealed. The sealing of the church. Revelation 7, 1 through 8. Church is sealed and ready to be removed. Revelation 14, verse 1. 144,000 sealed with the seal of God on their foreheads. There you go. Church is removed. So I'll white it out for you to make it a little easier on your eyes. Give you some breaks there. But what's taking place here? It's the removal of the church, crying out, how long must we wait? This is not literal, it's symbolic. But I left it in there. I put the not literal in most every one of them, if I remember. But the actual removal of the church, Revelation 7, verse 9, the church is removed. Rapture, not pre-trib, as you can see. It's post. That's Revelation 7, 9. The church is removed. Revelation 11, verses 11 through 12. Church gathered and removed. Revelation 11, 15. Last trump. Well, it's at the last trump. In a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. The trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. Sorry for paraphrasing there. 3 chapters later, go down to Revelation 14. Same as 19 through 11, rider on the white horse. I don't know why I've got the 19-11. Not really sure what that means. Hang on just a quick second. Okay, it's the same as Revelation chapter 19, verse 11. But we have removal on 14:14. Behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And that's the same as, and I opened heaven, saw a white horse, and he that sat on him was called Faithful and True and Righteous. So that's God on the white horse. And a white cloud, and of course the white horse would be, he would be on the cloud. I'm not really sure why. Oh, I put it in removal, but that's not really a removal verse. Removal comes the next two, 14, 15, 14, 16, the church is removed. So that's Revelation 14, verses 15 and 16, the church is removed again. Revelation 15, verses 2 through 4, the church is removed again. Revelation 19. And what I'm going to do to teach this is I'm going to put this on a playlist. And this is going to be the preview. And then I'm going to go through and read each of these with y'all on a playlist and show you how the church is removed in each of these. And then I'll go to wrath and I'll read all the wraths. Look how much wrath is by far told in the book of Revelation more than any other, because that's the Antichrist, that's the sealing, that's the removal, that's the wrath, that's the judgment. Heaven and or worship in heaven, a few items not literal. And there's my not literals. So you get the idea. I guess we can go ahead and show the Antichrist. Well, maybe we'll let this one go on its own. This will just be a preview of everything I'll be showing you, and it'll be the first one on my timeline. I mean, on my playlist. But y'all get the idea. Judgment, I think, is the second most popular after wrath. Church being removed. Church being removed and the Antichrist, Great Trib, kind of tied. Worship in heaven, just short of it. So we'll end here. This will just be a preview, and it will go to a playlist. And then I will do little bits at a time. That's probably the best way for me to get this done. All right, love y'all.